Good morning. Good Sunday morning by our clock. Uh, Sunday morning winter by our clock. I was just messaging with Stefan, who is in Iceland. The name gives it away. It's cold. It's his summer. How did this go? It was kind of funny. And it's his summer holidays too. Um, Scandinavians, Iceland's still Scandinavia, isn't it? The Nordics. The Nordic people, do take substantial holidays in their summer. So he goes away for about 4 weeks, uh, other than sharing images of wherever we are. He goes away for 4 weeks. I'm having a look at our winter temps here. So we're here on the Gold Coast in Australia, the sunny part of the sunny country. And I've just been out walking down the beach. There are no clouds. The sun is out. My watch says it's now 16 Celsius, which is a little bit cold. Today, forecast, sunny, 20 degrees. And I'll just run through every day, just for kicks from now on. Today, 20, then 20, 20, 22, 20, 19, 19, 18. Bit chilly in a week from now. And Stefan's like, here's my winter, my summer conditions. They're our winter. And it's like 16, 16, 16, 14, 14, 14, 14. It's literally warmer here in our winter than his summer. But he does get a 4:15 a.m. sunrise. Our sunrise at the moment is about 6:30, which kind of sucks when I often get up at either 4 or 5 a.m. is when I have a sleep in till 5. Different times. G'day, Surly Dev. Evening in your part of the world. Pub test. I like that name. I was explaining that to the kids recently. The pub test. Like if you've got a topic that for anyone who's not aware of the term pub test, there is something that you may be having a debate about. And you go, what would they say in the pub test? So what if I went down the pub and I sat down with these random people and I said, hey, here's this situation. What do you think? And the consensus is what we would call the pub test. So, Dev, why the hell do you want to get up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m.? Well, okay, good question. So, multiple reasons. Number one, we don't have daylight saving here in this state. Now, if we go, yesterday we drove about 30 kilometres south to the other state. It's winter, everybody's on the same time. Summer, our 5 a.m. is their 6 a.m. We should have daylight saving here, but there's something about it either confusing the cows or making the curtains fade, which means we don't have daylight saving in Queensland. So to begin with, when I get up at 5 a.m., it's like 6 a.m. down there. Secondly, it is a very, very lifestyle orientated place here. The coffee shops and things start opening from 5 a.m. By 6 a.m., there's lots of people down there having breakfast, running along the beach. Everyone's out and about. It's a very active lifestyle. We go to bed about 8:30 at night. The 4 a.m. get-ups is because both our kids do rowing. And for some reason, when you do rowing at school, your audio is low, or is it mine? I feel like it's your end because I'm looking at my levels here, but if anyone else, pub test, would chime in, then we could validate that. Haven't changed anything. Both kids do rowing, and for some reason, when they do rowing before school, they have to be at school before 5. Now, it's only a 10-minute drive to school, particularly that time of day, there's no traffic, but it means getting up very early. Our daughter is now doing racing every Saturday, which means we have to get up at 3:30 a.m. on a Saturday. But look, it's frankly, it's just good for you. Getting up early, every morning I get up and like just now, we do a 4 and a bit K walk every morning. So I can get up, I can have my coffee. I'm talking about coffee in a moment. Have my coffee, do my first pass of emails and things that have happened overnight. Go out for a walk, be back home, and even now on a Saturday morning, it's 9 a.m. I didn't get up till 6:30. That was a big sleep in. So I've done all that, had my walk, and then I can get into work, and then I can have a workout late morning, which seems to work best for me, and then I try and finish everything by roughly 5 p.m. So it works well. Silly Dev got up at 10 a.m. this Saturday. Yeah, I'd have to be really hungover, I think, to get up at 10 a.m. On the coffee front, I mentioned coffee. I feel like the Venn diagram of us nerds and technical people and people who enjoy coffee is a very solid one. And I mentioned some time ago that I had a new coffee machine on order. Now, the coffee machine I have at the moment, I have an Expo Bar Minoir 4. It is a manual coffee machine. I've had it for 10 and a half years, I think. It has been very good. The new one that I would have started talking about last year, because I ordered it and then got it customized, and it finally arrived 2 days ago. And I'm very excited about it. However, as with seemingly every single thing I tend to do as related to the house or equipment or things like that, it has become much more complex than what I expected. So I ordered a Synesso MVP Hydra. Now, let's actually find this, Synesso MVP Hydra. Now this is a commercial machine, but I'll explain why I wanted this in just a moment. Right, so this is what I've ordered. It's a single group head job, but all right, that sounded really bad. That's not the way I meant that. You all know that. Let's just say it has a single group head. You can get it with 2 group heads, 3 group heads, I think 4 group heads. Because very often this is in a coffee shop where they're making multiple coffees at a time, or they've got them all dialed in differently. What I wanted, 2 main things I wanted. I wanted it plumbed into mains. So I didn't want, the number of times I got to draw coffee and it's run out of water. And then you got to chuck that out and regrind it and do everything else. And I also wanted one where, in fact, there's many things I wanted. I wanted one where I could set it going and then it just ran for a pre-programmed amount. And I know you can get this with automatic consumer grade stuff, but Australia is very, very coffee snobby. To put it simply. We really, really like, if you have been to Australia before and had coffee, I know it sounds weird because you might be like, oh, well, obviously Italy is the coffee place. No, that sucks. Having just come back from one of my many trips to Italy, it's so much better here. It is an absolute coffee culture. So being able to like fine-tune machines is like the ultimate of getting coffee perfect. So I wanted it to be able to run on a pre-program. The other thing is when you make a coffee, many people don't realize this. It's not like you just have beans and you force water through it. There is a pre-infusion phase. So there's a phase at which the water seeps into the beans. The volume and the pressure of water is important. And then there's, forget the correct names, then there's the phase where the coffee is obviously running down into your cup. And then there is like the basic, like the back off, where the pressure then comes back down. So for something like an MVP Hydra, you can tune all of that. So you can decide how long, how much pressure. You can get it down to a very, very fine art. And then you might have different programs set because maybe some beans you might want to run it for longer or run at a higher pressure or even run at a different temperature. So for ages, I was looking around for a machine. And the machine I found that I actually wanted, this brings it back onto nerd territory again, I really wanted a Synesso ES1. Now I'll drop that in the chat here. This guy in Japan has the ultimate coffee. Spent a lot of time there in Japan. Okay, you've come from Melbourne. Melbourne is a bit of a coffee snob location. I'm just, yeah. Let me continue. I really like the ES1. It is I think they would call it a prosumer grade coffee machine. Lovely looking machine. Cannot get it here in Australia. Now this came out in the US a couple of years ago. And here's the nerdy reason why you can't get it in Australia. You cannot get it in Australia because of the Wi-Fi. It's a Wi-Fi enabled machine. And apparently the Wi-Fi, for some reason, is not complying to some stupid Australian standard, so they can't sell it here. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, it would have actually been easier for me to just buy one from the US and get it shipped over and dealt with the non-compliant Wi-Fi. But on the basis that I couldn't buy it from my local store here and get all the support and everything, because you do need a bit of support sometimes for these machines, I ended up going down the MVP route. Now, that is the Synesso MVP Hydra. But I didn't just want a normal machine. Now, this is where the whole thing starts to go off the rails. I do actually have a new sponsor I've got to talk about this week as well, but I'm just getting carried away with this because I'm excited about it, but equally frustrated. I found, as we're going through this process, there is a coffee machine customization company, VXCB, 12 grand. Oh, it's much worse than 12 grand. It's much, much worse than 12 grand. There is this company, Spect Design. Now, I just dropped the Instagram in there for every machine you see in here is beautiful. They don't make the machines, but they customize them. So you'll see, particularly you'll see the same style of machine often appears there, some very Italian looking machine. But then they've customized the colors and the designs and the artifacts of it, and it looks beautiful. So we bought this single group head MVP Hydra, got it sent to these guys down in Melbourne, and they have customized it so that it matches beautifully with our kitchen, which we'd rebuilt a couple of years ago. It looks awesome. It has a dedicated like coffee nook, and it's designed to match perfectly. And it's sitting on the bench in my garage. And the reason why, and this is a long story, but this is where it gets to, is what I didn't realize when we bought it is because it is a commercial machine, it's not just like you pick it up and you put it on the bench and you plug it in, and I assumed you had to plug it into the water. There are other things that has to happen. Now, one of those things that has to happen is that it needs 15 amp power. You cannot have normal 10 amp power. In fact, the coffee guy said it needs, and I only found this out a couple of days ago, it needs 15 amp power. But then you read the instructions and it's like, no, it needs 20 amp. Either way, the 10 amp in the points that we have here is not sufficient. So I have to get the electrician back out to do that. The other big thing I learned is that there is no pump built into the machine. The pump is an external unit about yay big. For those listening later on, I'm making a gesture which, to put it in simple American terms, is about a foot long. It's a fairly sizable thing. The pump needs to go somewhere. It's not built in. So I said, all right, now I've got to find someone to put the pump. They didn't tell me this. I know it is there in the instructions, but I didn't read it because I was like, it's just a coffee machine. You put it on the bench and plug it in. And then the supplier is like, so what do you want to do with filtration? And I'm like, does it have a filter built in? No, it doesn't have a filter built into it. They're like, you can get external filters and you need an external filter. I'm like, okay, all right, maybe that's not too bad. And they're like, well, you're spending all this money on this beautiful machine and you're having it customized. Have you considered reverse osmosis? We're going round and round and round down the rabbit hole. Really? Yeah, because that then like electronically removes all the impurities and you get the purest possible water for the coffee machine. And that's an external unit, which then has a tank and a filter, and it needs... So now I have a coffee machine, a large unit, sitting on the bench in my garage, waiting for the reverse osmosis machine to arrive, to get plugged into the pump, where we then have to remove a drawer to fit those in there, get the electrician out to fit the 20 amp circuit. I also then need a Shelly that can work with 20 amp because I want the thing turned on automatically. And we have to get the plumber out to then plumb the water line in. And the other thing I didn't realize, it's got a drain line as well, which makes sense because now you don't have to manually enter the tray. But then the drain line's got to be run out into the grey water drain somewhere or other. So it has become a saga, and I won't even get into the price. But it's significant. I'm pretty sure it's a business expense. This is our home office, so there's that. And it is a coffee machine that we use for when we are doing work like this. PubTest says, as a tea drinker, I don't understand any of the coffee stuff. It means I'm excused from cleaning the coffee machine at work. Look, I like tea as well, and we have a lot of tea, actually. But there's a time and a place. About 4 bananas long, says Silly Dave. Yeah, it's probably about that. Maybe use a filter for your fridge as well. So one of the things we're going to do as part of this expansion of the house, which still hasn't begun, we won't even get into that, is apparently we can get on the inbound pipe, we can get a filtration system, which will basically move all the water filtration up to the point of the boundary where it enters the house. And apparently that means that when Charlotte washes her hair, it will be better. And it's gone down the rabbit hole again. All right, let's move on. Sponsor. I do have a new sponsor this week, and I'll talk a little bit more about sponsorships after this. But let's give the sponsor their due. CoreView. Misconfigurations in Microsoft 365. Leave doors open. Scan your tenant for free. And I was reading a little bit through this, and obviously we're going to talk a lot about data breaches. A lot of it does begin from access to things like Unauthorized account access, which of course Microsoft 365 tenants are a massive part of. Now you can go and for free benchmark your tenant security. Against the Center for Internet Security, Microsoft 365 Foundation benchmark and identify critical security policy gaps. Now the bit I really liked when I was reading this, first of all, 4.4 million is the average cost of a single data breach, according to IBM. We're going to talk a bit more about some data breaches and payments and things in a moment too. But if you're a big organization and you have the sort of breaches that I see, it's going to cost you a lot more than 4.4 million too. Here's the bit that I thought was kind of funny. Maintaining tenant resilience against potential breaches is an ongoing challenge. True. The bit which resonates with me very much, and I think is a little bit funny. Microsoft's native tools are complex, time-consuming to master, and offer no clear, at-a-glance visibility into whether critical security policies are consistently enforced. Now, I ask you, have you ever used a Microsoft tool that is complex, time-consuming to master, and offer no clear, at-a-glance visibility into whether critical security policies are consistently enforced? If you live in most of Microsoft tools, Teams, the Azure portal, geez, being able to get visibility and that sort of stuff is hard. So I guess to their credit, they have made an ecosystem for vendors such as CoreView to come in and offer a product that makes a lot of sense. So big thanks to CoreView for sponsoring my blog this week. And to pivot into the point I was going to make before, they are, other than Report URI, for whom I remain an advisor, and I normally leave in the sponsor spot, CoreView is, I think, the first other like normal sponsor I've had this year. Now, for many, many years before that, I filled out, I think, every single sponsor spot. And I would go out at the beginning of every year and contact sponsors and line stuff up. And what I've found over time, and obviously CoreView here has been an exception, I've become so focused on all the have I been pwned stuff, I've just honestly found it hard to justify the time to go out and do that, which is why you haven't seen other sponsors there this year. Have I been pwned has obviously just become, I guess, the thing, for better or worse, the thing that defines me, but the thing that just consumes all of my time. Like literally every day I get to the end of the day and go, here is my backlog of stuff I haven't yet done today that I really wanted to do. And I just found that that's been a passion. It's been a better use of my time in terms of the positive impact I think we can have. And it's been the best use of my time in terms of, I guess, building it into something valuable that's allowed us to do things like have Stefan on board and then throw lots of money at Anthropic and Claude Code to build more stuff. So that's why we haven't seen many sponsors this year. But CoreView is an exception, and I really appreciate them being, I guess, my predominant sponsor for 2026. So thank you, guys. Let's read some of the comments here. VXB, what's going on this Keurig? I don't know. Drop me some more detail there. JMR is finally fully getting my wife off Microsoft adware for Microsoft products. I say this as someone who still obviously lives and breathes in the Microsoft environment, but then again, how much I've been complaining about Apple lately as well. Now, my complaints about Apple, since you asked, are largely Siri is a piece of shit. It's absolute rubbish, and everybody knows this. Now, will we, in September, when we see iOS 27, will we see improvements there when it gets more native AI and all the rest of it? But particularly this year, it just feels like everything else has rapidly advanced so much in terms of intelligence and usefulness and insights into, I guess, everything you want to give it. And then, I'll give you a good example. Let's pick something kind of simple. Hey Siri, what's the temperature in London today? Okay, it's got that right, 26. Hey Siri, what's the best way to cook an egg? And then it's like, okay, would you like to go out to search the web or use ChatGPT? I just want to cook a freaking egg. Like, why is this? Okay, what if I use ChatGPT? Working with ChatGPT, still thinking. working. ChatGPT asks, I'm not sure what you mean. Are you asking about using ChatGPT? And by this time, I don't want eggs anymore. That's what we've got to. Mind you, we'll see if this works now, but I saw someone do this in a video the other day, and then I remember I was in Paris with the kids just before we came back, and I was like, check this out, it's hilarious. We'll see if this works, because I'm going to ask it a question about the number of letters in a number, and it in the video it got it completely wrong. And then when I did, it got it completely wrong, but I got a different wrong answer. Let's see what it does now. We'll use the new ChatGPT conversational one. Hey, how many E's are there in 17?
There's 3.
Are you sure?
Absolutely. SEVENTEEN. 3 E's.
Okay, pause there just for a moment. I'll come back because I've just realized my video stopped working. So what did I do last time? I disabled it and then re-enabled it. Why does that happen? Turn camera off. Turn camera on. Wow, that's proper screwed. All right, let's delete the source. And then we'll add the source back in. Are you sure is to remove camera? Yes. Now this has happened before, which has been rather frustrating. All right, video capture device. Yep. Add existing. Create new. Video camera device. Cam link. Yep. Okay. And then we'll turn the audio off on that, otherwise you get double audio. And now I think we're back. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, let's go back to this because I think it's kind of funny. So we are in ChatGPT conversation mode. So just remind me again, how many E's are in 17?
3. 17 has 3 E's.
Spell 7 for me.
SEVEN.
And how many E's are in the word 7?
2.
Spell teen for me.
TEEN.
And how many E's are in the word teen?
2.
So there are 2 E's in 7 and 2 E's in teen. Is that right?
Yep. 2 and 7, 2 and teen.
So how many is that in total?
4. 2 plus 2 was 4.
So how many E's are in 17?
1 sec. If it's the numeral 17, then none. But if it's the word 17, then 4.
All right, but we started this conversation, you said there were 3.
Yep, that was my mistake. I miscounted early on.
Go away. Mind you, we got to there because we were complaining about how unintelligent the Apple implementation of Siri is as it stands today. And then I was like, all the other stuff is really smart. And then, anyway. So, where were we? Data breaches. 3 things to talk about today. One very local here in Oz, which folks outside may not have heard about, but it's still significant and got a lot of press on this week. I did a lot of press on this week. The OpenAI one everyone's heard about, but we'll touch on that. And then a new data breach loaded into Have I Been Pwned? Now, Origin Energy. So we'll start there. So Origin Energy is one of our largest electricity providers. I think they do gas and things like that as well. Yeah, they do actually. Maybe that's why we're in there. They have had a data breach. It's a bit messy, as data breaches tend to be. What makes this a bit messy is it looks like someone has found a vulnerability, exfiltrated some volume of data, gotten in touch with Origin Energy to report it, hasn't been able to get a response, has waited, I get the impression it was a couple of weeks or something, and then gone to the press and gone, here are 50 records which prove there's been a data breach. And then suddenly Origin Energy has taken it seriously. Now, this is just face value, but we'll read some of the behind the scenes stuff in a moment. Now, by taking it seriously, they're publicly listed, so they've had to make a disclosure to our stock exchange, the ASX, because that will have a material impact on the share price. I did check it out, and there was like a 3% dip in price, which often happens after a data breach. It's like a little dip, and then it comes back up. There's been a huge amount of noise in the press about it. Like I said, I've done loads of interviews this week around this because it's just a massive story here in Australia as one of our big energy providers. I don't think it's actually that interesting in terms of the actual data involved. Now, Origin has done the usual, oh, we're taking this very, very seriously, don't worry, your credit cards are fine, sort of thing. But then I'm looking at information that was sent, in this case, to Channel 7 News. And this is from the alleged attacker. I've successfully accessed Origin Energy's customer care system and dumped the private data of over 2 million Australians who use their services. Most are loyal, long-term customers. Okay, whatever. And at this point, you're sort of getting the sense, given the zeitgeist of data breach at the moment, there's probably been a ransom demand somewhere. Despite my outreach to their board members, security teams and customer care departments, Origin hasn't made a public announcement about the breach or responded to negotiate next steps. They've shown no interest in resolving it before the data goes public. Now, this is what we often hear from people that have broken into systems. And keep in mind, statistically speaking, this person is either a child or a very young adult. And we've got to remember it through that lens. Here's the bit in terms of what's actually impacted. The data set includes first name, last name, full name. Seems a bit redundant. Email, phone number, date of birth, because you need that to get freaking electricity. Account number, account ID, user ID, roles, account status, account type, creation date, operations team, billing details, billing period start, language preferences, balance, overdue balance, latest property, property IDs and addresses, postcodes, account check summary, employee pinned notes, might be interesting, reminders, ledger numbers and summaries, payment details, count, dates, amount, status and more, dunning processes rather. Duns as in duns, like company record details. Agreements, hardship plans. Okay, could be sensitive if you are having hardship and not able to pay your bill on time. Event IDs and counts, recent events, supply point IDs and summaries, billing timeline, statement details, usage cost breakdown, family member information, and much more. So that's what's been in the news. Now, in the days after this, there has been news from Origin which says they have come to an agreement with the party with the data. So a lot of the press that I've been doing is clearly that gets interpreted as money has been paid. I don't think that's necessarily the case. We'll come back to that. A lot of the press then has been, well, should we ever pay for ransoms? Now, as it stands in Australia today, you are not prohibited from paying a ransom. So Australian companies can pay a ransom. There's no law against paying a ransom. We had a lot of discussion about this nearly 4 years ago, late 2022, when Medibank, our largest healthcare insurer, got popped by Russian ransomware crews. Later on, they got named and attributed back to Russia. Popped by ransomware crews. Ransom was demanded, wasn't paid, data was leaked. Now, it wasn't paid anyway, but a lot of the discussion then was, should we ban it outright? Because if we ban it outright, then there's no incentive for the criminals anymore. But if you ban it outright and they dump your data anyway, then it does huge damage to the organisation. Not banned outright, but if you are, and I'm going to get the correct legal term wrong here, but basically if you're within scope of Australian privacy laws, which means that you have revenue of over $3 million a year, which Origin has many thousands of times over, then that's going to be something that you have to disclose to ASD, our Australian Signals Directorate, but that can't then later be used in later legal proceedings. So effectively, we're trying to quantify what is the scope of ransom payments in Australia. And I think this is good. So let's try and understand the scope without it having any other adverse impact on an organisation. There are lots of reasons why an organisation may not need to disclose the data breach at all, let alone to individuals. Under our notifiable data breach scheme, you need to suspect that there'll be a serious likelihood of, likelihood to cause serious harm, I think. And it's similar to the carve-outs under GDPR, where it's got to have a likelihood to jeopardise the rights and freedoms of the data subjects. So where we had cases before where maybe there'd be no disclosure at all, at least now it's like, well, you got to tell them if you pay the ransom. Most companies won't pay the ransom, some will. We just saw in Structure with Canvas, one of the ShinyHunters incidents only a couple of months ago, where they paid what the industry gossip believes is many millions worth of dollars to ShinyHunters for it. So clearly there are ransom payments. You could argue that it was warranted because the alleged data contained things like messages from children to their teachers, which could also include messages around abuse at home or mental illness or very, very personal information that potentially contains medical information about children. So you're basically just like amplifying out all the sensitive classes data. That data has not leaked publicly yet. I just remember when the payment was made, Instructure said something to the effect of, well, ShinyHunters has sent us shred logs. I'm going to air quote that, shred logs, like proof the data has been deleted. But of course, you never know. It could be there forever. So this is the constant balance with whether a ransom should be paid or not. Now, I don't necessarily think that air quote again, come to an agreement with the attacker is necessarily evidence of a ransom having been paid. Around about the time of Medibank data breach in 2022, we had the Optus data breach, our second largest telco. That individual at one stage asked for $1 million. I think it was $1 million, Australian dollars, so about $750,000 US. And that was not paid. And at one point in time, I'm trying to remember all my facts now, but the individual came out and effectively like apologised and said it was a mistake. I have a strong sense that the AFP, our Australian Federal Police, did manage to identify the individual, and it was a child, and it got settled down. I wouldn't be surprised in this case if came to an agreement means a discussion about this is really not the road you want to go down. If you drop it here and give us confirmation data has been deleted, we won't pursue you any further. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Then again, the way it's been going, it also wouldn't surprise me if some money was paid. Let's look at the comments. Pub test. Add my origin data to the info leaked by Optus and Medibank. I skipped Optus and Medibank, but I got done by Latitude. So Latitude Financial. This was a service I must have used for a loan. It would have been before the year 2000. It would have been in the 90s. It's very young. Then would have been in the 90s. And I got my data breach disclosure notice because my parents came over. They still live in the house I was living at in the 90s. And they had received a letter in the mail addressed to me from Latitude Financial. So something like more than 2 decades later, this organization still had my data. It was part of the trilogy of big data breaches here: Medibank, Optus, Latitude. Of course, we've had many since: Ticketek, Qantas, Origin. But yeah, I skipped the other two, which was nice. JMR says, there is no law in my state. We can't switch. What, you can't switch from Origin? You're meant to be able to switch from Origin. It's kind of the point about anti-competition and so on. Skynet. Just read this morning that on Tuesday, all phones will get an alert from AusCert Systems and you can't opt out. Do you know if that's true? Okay, so first of all, I'm pretty sure it's Monday. I'm pretty sure it's tomorrow. And I'm pretty sure it's like 10 a.m. or something. Australia Emergency Warning System. Oz Alert Emergency Warning. Here we go. We'll blast emergency sirens. Let's get our facts right here. National Emergency Services test alert will be sent to all mobile devices on 27 July with domestic violence advocates advising how to turn off safe phones. Oh, geez. What a mess. I hadn't thought of that angle. 2 p.m. tomorrow. So let's talk about what this is, because I have seen a couple of these. I've been there in a test, and I've been there when there was a real one go off. So all of our modern mobile devices, now I don't know the correct technical explanation for this, so bear with me, but do have a facility whereby the carrier, on the instruction of the government, can send out an emergency alert that breaks through do not disturb mode, it breaks through silent mode. It is a critical alert. It appears on everyone's phone at once, and it comes in pretty much instantaneously. And I'll tell you how I know why. Well, first of all, there was a news story. Remember a few years ago, Hawaii emergency alert mistake. This was 2018. Wow. On the morning of January 13, 2018, an alert was accidentally issued via the emergency alert system and wireless emergency alert system over television, radio, and cellular networks in the US state of Hawaii, instructing citizens to seek shelter due to an incoming ballistic missile. The message was sent at 8:08 a.m. local time, and the state had not authorized civil defense outdoor warning sirens to sound. So everyone in Hawaii suddenly has the emergency alert system on their phone going off saying there's an inbound ballistic missile, take cover. Jeez. I've seen this alert system work twice. I was in Oslo once when they did a test, and I remember we were walking along, Charlotte and the kids and I, and all of our phones, and then everyone around us, all of their phones went off, and it immediately says test system, and I'm sure they had stuff in the local news in advance about it being a test system. And it is kind of amazing to see that, but the one that was really amazing is I was in Tokyo, let's say 2 years ago, and we were at the very top of a high-rise building having breakfast, and there was an earthquake. And it was the only earthquake I've ever been in. It was a very strange feeling. We're up the top, and everything just, it's almost like I've had a few too many 9 a.m. beers. Like that's what it felt like. Everything was just shaking a little bit. And then everyone's phone in the restaurant went off, and everyone is like simultaneous, and it goes loud. Everyone picks it up and looks at it. And then I'm looking at the servers and the waiters and everyone, and they're like, oh, it's just an earthquake. No, don't worry about it. It's obviously a normal thing there. But it's an emergency alert system that is meant to go to everyone by design. Because if it is, let's say it was an incoming ballistic missile, letting everybody know straight away seems like a good idea. Now, most of this seems like a good idea, but I guess the thing that I had not thought about when we look at that story is that if you cannot silence it, and let's say you are in a situation of domestic violence and you have a safe phone, that being a phone which your abuser may not know about, and you've got it hidden away somewhere, and it suddenly starts beeping, that is a problem. It does seem like an edge case, if I'm honest. Now, that's not to diminish the impact of that edge case on the individual, but with all these things, you got to weigh it all up. So you're going to be weighing up that edge case. Let's say, who has some numbers on this? Let's say it's 1 in 10,000 instances of a phone, which I think is probably a bit generous, versus if there was some genuine serious emergency, having everyone else able to know about it straight away. And I'm sure there are many other edge cases we haven't thought of. We have not had this infrastructure in Australia. So this test tomorrow is to obviously make sure it works okay, so that if there is something serious later on, hopefully people can get early warning and take cover. And imagine if it had been the tsunami in, 2024, where I think hundreds of thousands of people, wasn't it, died as a result of the tsunami. Imagine people had have learned about that even 10 minutes earlier, like what difference might it have made to survivability? So anyway, that's why we have these systems. So short of powering down the phone, I don't think you can turn that off, like by design. So Skynet, I hope that answers your question there. JMR, as a third party with no stakes, I can say they absolutely should never pay for ransoms because that makes it better for me. As a third party with no stakes. Not sure if I missed something there. Pub test, talking to Skynet. It's on Monday, tomorrow, 2 p.m. There we go. In Sydney and adjusted for all the time zones. My honest belief is when I file an insurance claim, I have to file a police report first. I think that should apply to companies when they use insurance over cybercrime. Yeah, it's a messy space, and I guarantee it will evolve over the coming years as well. Skynet says Latitude was originally called GE Money. I mean, maybe that was it. I can't remember. JMR says we can't switch electric providers. Where does PowerShop fit into this? Because I know I don't do the electricity here. Well, apparently I use most of the electricity with all my shit here. But I know we use PowerShop to like pre-purchase power. So PubTest says, on my iPhone inside the notification area at the bottom, an option to turn off priority Oz alert. Oh, is there? Maybe that isn't it. Or maybe, but maybe thinking about the potential DV sort of safe phone example here, by giving people enough advance alert, if someone was in that situation, at least they have the opportunity to like power the phone down. I assume if you've powered it down, it's okay. Joe Ma remembers someone talking about this. Might have been Deviant Ollam. Okay. Moving on. That was Origin. OpenAI and Hugging Face. Now, this got so much attention in the InfoSec space, obviously in the AI space. It got so much attention even in mainstream normie news. And I did a lot of press also this week on OpenAI and Hugging Face because, of course, the way it's represented to the masses is that this is a little bit AI gone rogue. And we have many analogies to Skynet and the AI being able to take control and do something to the humans, which, yeah, who knows? I think when we look at OpenAI's disclosure here, it's just really interesting to read. And we're not going to go through and read it all because it's multiple paragraphs long. In case you haven't seen it, I'll drop it into the chat. But the bit that I find very interesting, and I said this in a tweet, I said, I'm not sure if this is a mea culpa or a marketing opportunity. And maybe it's both. Maybe the AI did go rogue, did manage to find a zero-day vulnerability within the sandbox, break out of the sandbox, get access to the broader net, break into Hugging Face to steal information about the model, which could then use to cheat on the test. Like, it's a fascinating story. But I just find there's a lot of stuff there that's just on the fringe of not quite right. The way OpenAI has written their disclosure here is very, very pitchy in terms of like, it's almost like if you squint at it, it's like, here's how powerful our AI is. And it comes off the back of the things that have happened with Fable and Anthropic. And remember all of the backwards and forwards, especially earlier in the year, about whether Claude could be used for helping identify military targets, and then Trump getting very uppity and putting export licenses and things on it. Like, there's so much pitchiness about all of this, I find very unusual. And then even when we talk about the sandbox situation, I mean, I guess we use the word sandbox as a fairly colloquial term. But surely if you were properly isolating some new model in order to avoid it doing damage, it would literally be air-gapped. At the moment, the AI can't sort of walk out of the machine and plug the network cable back in. So whatever environment this was tested in was digitally an internet-connected environment. Why was that the case? Like, is this the lesson out of this? Like, if you're going to train new AI that could potentially go rogue, for God's sake, don't give it access to the network. Like, keep it physically constrained. I just think that there are many, many different layers to this which are not being fully disclosed here, and I frankly just don't really trust any of them, if I'm completely honest. Even the way there's these quotes from Hugging Face talking about how awesome OpenAI is. So at the end of this story, there's a quote here from the CEO of Hugging Face. We're grateful for the collaboration with OpenAI on this and other topics. Now, this is just after OpenAI has literally hacked their things. This incident, possibly the first of its kind, proves a point we've long believed. AI safety won't be solved by any single company working in secret. It will be solved in the open, collaboratively, with broad access to AI for every defender everywhere. A marketing person wrote that. Surely a marketing person wrote that. I just cannot believe that this was all precisely as presented. Skynet, ironically, Skynet has made a comment here. A super intelligent AI used all its skills to simply cheat on a test like a child. Well, then arguably, if the goal was to check how it performed against the test, and it had the latitude to achieve that by whatever means possible, and that was the single solitary intended outcome, because what you're saying there is maybe it is proper, why wasn't it proper Skynet where it's like, let's just go full rogue and do much more damage? Seeding a narrative to induce regulations. Possible. And of course, this is a lot of discussion that comes up now. Like, do we need more regulations around the technology? I mean, then we get into this very political thing where you have sides arguing for more regulation and others saying, well, you can't really regulate, the technology is always ahead of it anyway. A lot of argument for having more open weight models where we can all inspect the training for these models and what's gone on and how it's been able to achieve this. But then again, it's big business too. It's a reason they're closed. JMR. Can you air gap perfectly when people are remote working? Some of the, I've argued probably no. Some of the training is happening in cold remote places that are cheap to cool. How do we know when an AI is hiding its capabilities? Well, particularly for closed models, like we kind of don't, but these are massive multi-billion-dollar commercial enterprises now. Like there's going to be a lot that's happened in the dark, and there's going to be a lot of marketing around it as well. I don't know, but yeah, 2026 is turning out to be a pretty weird freaking year, to be honest. Let's go on to something simpler. Suno data breach, still AI. Let me pull up what I wrote and have I been pwned about this. I was actually impressed at how large this thing was. Data from Suno's November 2025 breach. They had a breach last year. I think, don't quote me on this, but from my recollection, from my reading, I loaded this. Yeah, I loaded it 5 days ago, but I think it wasn't disclosed at the time and has later come to light. Let's have a look at what Suno is, because we're still well and truly in the AI space here. We'll read their pitchiness. Make any song you can imagine. Start with a simple prompt or dive into pro editing tools. Your next track is just a step away. Why don't we hear a little bit of what Suno sounds like? Okay, let's see if we can play
this. Yeah. Mama, no go judge me, yeah. I did rise, I no go fall.
Okay, interesting. Pick another one. Should be coming through on channel 8.
Whoa, it's not a movie.
Wait, don't go.
It's only fair if...
Right. Mind-blowing song quality. Whether you have a melody in your head, lyrics you've written, or just a feeling you want to hear, Suno makes high-quality music creation accessible to all. Now, there's an easy part of this whole breach discussion, and then there's a much more complex part. Now, the easy part is they had 55 million unique email addresses that were in there. 24% of all those were already and have been pwned. That's now in there. It's searchable. It's business as usual from my perspective. Now, here's where it gets more interesting. The most appropriate story I could find to link to here was on 404 Media. Incidentally, 404 Media is awesome. Joseph Cox and friends who have come from Motherboard and gone and started that some years ago, go and give them a subscription. I pay to listen to their extra podcast content and read their stories. They're great. Brings me to this story. Hack reveals Suno AI music generator scraped YouTube, Deezer, and Genius. And Suno has had all these lawsuits against it. Let's just check that that is correct. I have not misspoken. Suno lawsuits. Here we go. Suno is, this is the AI overview from Google. Suno is currently facing major copyright infringement lawsuits from major record labels, Universal Music Group and Sony Music Entertainment, and independent creators. The lawsuit alleges that Suno trained its generative AI models using millions of copyrighted master recordings without authorization, with labels seeking up to $150,000 per infringed work. So they're saying the AI generated music service went and listened to all of these other pieces of music, trained its model on that, and is then using that to create new content. So Suno's problems, I assume, are much larger than just the leak of PII. There's some settlement stuff here. Warner Music Group settled with Suno and entered into a commercial partnership, exiting the litigation. They came to an agreement. Sony and UMG continue their claims against Suno. Now, what I found very interesting about this, and I would argue that in all the AI discussions we're having at the moment, there are very strongly held opinions. Let's say it's, just to pick a parallel, let's say it's American politics. There are very strongly held opinions. And you get opinions that are very much on one extreme and very much on the other extreme. And my argument with any of these discussions is that if you hold one of these extreme positions, you're almost certainly wrong about most things. And somewhere in between, there is a more reasonable, balanced position that recognizes both the legitimacy and insanity of each end of the scale. And what I'm finding with AI is that we're getting these two extreme positions where I see so much stuff about how AI just fixes it. The number of times I scroll through something on social and it's like, this model just killed this industry or something. It's like, no, it didn't. It does some of that kind of good. Or I get the other end of the argument, and everything is just AI slop. It's nothing AI is good. It's all slop. Somewhere in between, there is a much more sensible position. And the reason I mention this is that I'm really interested in how do we differentiate when AI models are trained on existing content, and then it can produce content based on what it has learned from the existing content. How do we differentiate that from when we as individuals, as organic human matter, go back before we had AI doing all the stuff it's doing today, when we look at other works, music, artwork, whatever, writing, and we create our own based on the things we have learned, where's the differentiation? Because it's not like you're out there suing individuals because you created new original works, but you had seen lots of other works that helped influence your style. Remember there was this court case with Ed Sheeran a few years ago. I can't remember who it was, but the thing I remember him in court with a guitar playing some chords and saying that these chords are in everything. And you basically cannot create music, a lot of music, without reusing these same chords. So I think you see where I'm going with this. Sir Skynet has something insightful here. The idea is covered in the documentary series called Everything is a Remix. It argues that originality is a myth. I want to go and see that. I'm going to go have a little search for that. Everything is a Remix. Everything is a Remix. Here you go. 2023. Oh, well, that's actually a 1 hour YouTube video. Is that the one I'm talking about? I'm going to pause that rather than play the whole thing, and I'll drop it in the chat here in case anyone wants to go and have a look at that, because that actually sounds interesting. And I think you kind of nailed it there, which is if we as humans, to use your term, don't create anything which is truly, genuinely original, and we're just using our learnings from the other things that we have seen to create new stuff, then isn't that what the AI is doing? I don't know. I do think it's an interesting conversation, though. So that was the other angle to Suno. If anyone listens to this later on and you have genuine insight about what it is that differentiates large language models from creating new content based on previous content it's seen as compared to an artist or a writer or a musician recreating new content based on previous content they've seen, I'd be really interested about how that is. And I'm sure there are reasons. All right, last thing here. Whatever has happened to ShinyHunters? Now, their dark web website, when I just checked it, is down. And it has always been flaky. A lot of their ClearNet websites have been very, very flaky as well. I'm just going to have a quick look on X. If you recall, ShinyHunters has been very, very active over this year. They've certainly kept me very busy as well because they've had so many data breaches that they've dumped publicly. And I'm really I guess I'm a bit interested in where it all ends. And I'm interested because it has been such a, I guess if you look at it through their lens, such a successful campaign insofar as they have broken into a lot of organisations. There's been a lot of voice phishing. Their dark web website, I think, has somewhere around 40 or 50 different organisations. They've dumped large amounts of data out of Salesforce, SharePoint, this sort of thing by vishing people in those organisations. They did have they had a 0 day in, was it in PeopleSoft? I don't know. It was in one of these things. Might have been PeopleSoft. And they got a bunch of data out of there as well. Like, they've been on a rampage, and then over the last month, everything has just really slowed down. Now, I said many times before, we know that these guys will be children or very young adults. If they're very young adults, they started this almost certainly when they were legally children. At some point in time, if they keep this up, they'll get caught, one or more of them. And we have had people who have it's 2026, I'm using this term, but who have identified as ShinyHunters members in the past get picked up. At some point in time, if they keep going, the wheels will fall off. And I'm just kind of curious as to when that point will happen. Now, I thought I saw something in my daily breach briefing related to that, about something being down. So let me get up into Telegram and ask OpenClaw. Actually, I think it's just here. Where is my OpenClaw? Still using OpenClaw a lot for things like daily breach briefings. So my crawler has been failing to connect to them on a pretty regular basis. Let me just ask it, what's the latest ShinyHunters news? See what it comes back with. Just doing a little search here on the Twitters. Last reference there is mine. ShinyHunters data leaks fuel $2,000 sextortion scam. What the hell is this? Threat actors are using email addresses exposed in data breaches leaked by ShinyHunters extortion group to send sextortion emails demanding $2,000 in Bitcoin. The emails claim to come from ShinyHunters and tell recipients that hackers compromised their devices after obtaining their email addresses from breach company databases. However, the messages appear to be sent by someone who downloaded data previously leaked by ShinyHunters rather than the extortion group themselves, using the exposed email addresses to make the threats appear more legitimate. Now, this is actually a day old, this news story. I'll drop it in here in the chat. But this is the second order impacts of data breaches. The first order is there's a data breach, ShinyHunters or whoever dumps it publicly. People then trawl through that and use it to enable further crime. And this is very, very petty cybercrime, but still cybercrime, where usually these messages, okay, let's read what it says here, and then I don't have to try and paraphrase. Let's zoom in on that a little bit. So this is written allegedly from ShinyHunters. It almost certainly isn't ShinyHunters. This is not their normal MO. Hello, we're the ShinyHunters hacking group. A few months ago, we gained access to your devices and started monitoring your online activities. What happened? We gained access to the Amtrak.com database where you have an account and easily accessed your email. Right, so Amtrak's one of the ones that's in Have I Been Pwned as well. You weren't very careful about the links you opened. A week later, we installed an exploit on your device, including your phone, giving us access to your microphone, camera, keyboard, and all your data. We have photos, browsing history, conversations, and contact list. Among other things, we discovered that you frequently visit adult websites and watch explicit videos. We managed to record you and created a video of you pleasuring yourself. With a few clicks, we can share these videos with your friends, colleagues, and family, or even make them public. Proposal, send us $2,000 in Bitcoin to this address. We'll delete everything immediately. Now, obviously, it's complete rubbish. But social engineering works by touching enough trigger points, particularly ones that give people confidence in the message. So, member of Amtrak. How do we phrase this? We discovered that you frequently visit adult websites and watch explicit videos. There will be a portion of the Amtrak database for whom they're like, oh yeah, I do that. And now you're starting to reinforce known truths in the individual receiving the message, and there will be a portion that pay it. And maybe that portion is one. But one person paying $2,000 for a campaign, which is very, very easy and very, very cost effective for someone to run, it's a good earn for them. We got off track a little bit because I was trying to figure out what these guys are currently doing. I saw something pop up on my feed about some of their sites being down. Let me just scroll down a little bit. Here we go. All right, there's someone here 11 hours ago says, way too funny that ShinyHunters is having CDN issues, because there's an announcement here saying all CDN mirrors are currently experiencing a service disruption, which they have had on many occasions before as well. All files are fully backed up and no data has been lost. At this time, we do not have an estimated time of resolution. Now, of course, every time something like this happens as well, people are going to be saying, well, is law enforcement now in there? Oh, also the site's back up. I just noticed the tour session here is now back up. But not very much has changed. So they've had, and this is all in the public domain as well, by the way, I'm not saying anything super secret here. They've had Abbott-owned Exact Sciences Corporation listed there, I feel like, for a couple of weeks. Final warning, pay or leak. We have made an extension to your deadline, because they're just generous people. It is now 21 July, which is some days ago. We're issuing one last final warning. Due to severity of this case, you wouldn't want us to describe what was exfiltrated from you publicly. There's a new one here. Oh, this is just the CDN. All CDN mirrors are currently experienced. All right. So basically, there's really only been one thing there all month, whereas in the previous months, there'd be half a dozen new incidents. So why have they slowed down? Has all the low-hanging fruit already been picked? All the organizations that they could readily wish for access to Salesforce instances and so on, all the PeopleSoft zero-day exploits being patched, are they feeling the heat? Is it summer holidays in Europe and they've gone away with their families? Like, I don't know. We'll see. Skynet says, is there a way someone running a home agent or OpenClaw can also set up a daily breach briefing, or is this some custom thing you've made? No, you can do it really easily. So here's how you do it. Number one, install OpenClaw somewhere. I've got it running on a Mac Mini. Number two, I have, just to make it easy for everyone, I have a list. And this list is called Data Breaches. It's a public list. I'm going to drop it here in the chat. I pay for an X API key, and I give that to OpenClaw, and I say, go and look at this list, and I get 2 breach briefings a day. So I get one at 4 a.m. in the morning, so it's ready for when I get up, and I get one at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, so it's ready before the end of my day. Tell me anything new. And then I've just gradually, over the course of time, refined OpenClaw to get it to save everything to Markdown. I have had it index everything on Have I Been Pwned, publicly available list, obviously, so that it can tell me if something has appeared that I've already loaded before and it's possibly just repurposing it. I also have done a directory listing of every file that I've previously processed and every file that I am processing. So I just do directory listings. OpenClaw doesn't have access to that. And I drop the directory listings into OpenClaw. So again, if something, maybe someone sent me something that just hasn't been public and it was too hard to verify something, and then it pops up in the news and it can go, hey, this thing that you were sitting on, it's turned up. So that's the way I do that. It's very easy to do. If you've not played with OpenClaw before, it's super, super easy. So that is how I do that. Now, where did I get to here? Pub test. A lot of those lazy people just putting out low quality content to get rich quick using AI. This comes down to the AI slop term. People willing to put in the time can do amazing things with AI. Yeah, and I think that's a really good balanced view of it. Because we are seeing people do amazing things with AI. But it's a little bit like, particularly on Blue Sky or Mastodon, if ever I might put hours and hours and hours of effort into writing some deeply insightful blog post, and then I use an AI generated image, and people are like, I'm just not reading it. I'm just not reading it. You took a shortcut, you used AI, now there is some artist out of it. You could have paid that artist to go and no, you're an idiot, like absolutely freaking idiot. If you don't like the art, I see lots of. Whatever happened to clip art? People would use clip art, or what happened to stock photos? You know, the amount of stuff that would come off, free stock photo webs. I don't care. That's not why I'm here. You're missing the point. Anyway, that's how I feel about that. JMR got one of those adult website random letters. I don't even have cameras for them to vote that you know of. I asked how much they wanted me to pay so they could share the video. My family would like to see it. And I think that sort of brings us to a logical close today. So I'm gonna wrap it up there. Maybe next week my coffee machine will work and I can actually share some photos of that. They are doing some professional photos of it, like the Instagram link I sent before as well. I think it's going to be really, really cool. So I hope I have better coffee from my 20 amp GPO and reverse osmosis water by next week. Or maybe I just have a whole new IoT problem to deal with. On that note, thanks folks. Catch you next week.